Welcome to Re-Educated TV, where we keep you informed. We should have acknowledged by now that history and religion are closely connected. Most, if not all, historical events, the names of nations and countries, the customs of the people, and their mode of thinking, and the way they applied it to their everyday life, was based solely on religion. With that said, history, with the religious context omitted, is also disingenuine. For example, if you speak of the Chaldeans without mentioning why they were called Chaldeans, is omitting the fact that they were once the worshippers of the goddess Kali. Hence the name the Chaldeans and later Chaldeans. The fact that the definition of the word Chaldean means the worshippers of Kali have already rewritten the present narrative of the Chaldeans. In the same manner, the words Tartary and the word Saxon are religious names of a people. Tartary or Tartaria were anciently the worshippers of Tat, who is Thoth in Egypt, Hermes, Odin, Cancer, or Herod, among other names. The Sakas were the worshippers of the Saka or Sake. The Khazars, among others, were of the Saka or Sake. The Sakas were of Tartary, and Tartary were of Saka, which will be explained briefly. Now, a great and mighty civilization once existed, which was believed to be an age of peace and learning, that was under the rule of a sacerdotal caste or order, which governed the entire world. Out of them came the feudal system, or the mandate of heaven, among other systems. So all the sacred numbers and cycles, which was a part of the secret doctrine of Genesis, are closely and intimately connected with the feudal system. Now, one of the most common names of Buddha was Saka, which was also the name of the Lama of Tibet. From this name of Buddha, these tribes that inhabited an extensive country east of the Caspian Sea and north of Tibet were called Saxons, who were Scythians and Buddhists in ancient times. The word Saxons came from the word Saka and Sake. Saka is nothing but the ancient Buddha. The ancient or genuine language of the Saxons were of the Hebrew language. The Saxons were the Belgic Saxons of Gaul. I have previously pointed out the Gadelians, or so-called Celts, were Scythians. The Arabians, the Libyans, the Egyptians were all Scythians also, of the ancient Saka. And now you can safely add the Saxons, who were the same people of the same hive that journeyed to the west at different times. So they were all a caste or swarm sent out from a great and excessive populous hive of Tartary, or North India, or the country of 1,000 cities. The only difference between the various tribes were their names and dialect due to unwritten language over a period of time. No, the Scythians journeyed across the world from Britain to the Americas, and everywhere they went, they brought their manners, government, language, religion, and allegiance to their supreme head, which can be found around the world, but nowhere can be found any of their high class, in other words, ancient customs, but the persons of the Americas, the black indigenous people of the Americas. They were the closest to the ancient customs, because, as it is said or written, that they came to the Americas some thousands of years before Christ. There was said to be a barbarian who plundered Jerusalem, and he was a Scythian and Saxon of Tartar or Tartary. The ancient Buddha has many names, Tat being one such name, in which the words Tatar or Tartary came from, or where the Tatars got their name. All heads of wisdom of any practice got their names from the Saka, which includes the Hebrew Saga, who was the assistant advisor to the high priest. The word Sagart, which was a Roman officer, and Saga, a witch. Among the Mohammedans and their secret religion, Muhammad was called a Saka, or a Saksesawara. The Mohammedans' belief was that Muhammad was a renewed incarnation of wisdom and of Buddha in its 10th avatar. The Kohena is the Hebrew word for a priest. The word Kohena is from the word Khan, and the Druidical circles were built by Khans. The priests of the Druids were Khans. The Egyptians had a class of people called sages. The Scandinavians, the Irish, the Tyrians or Tyrians, and the Chaldean all had the same title as Saga, sages, Sagun, or other sacerdotal titles. Strabo confirms that all the tribes of Scotland and of the Bedouin Arabs of Armenia and the Germanic tribes or the Saxons were Scythians that arrived in Germany and Britain from countries the most remote, and they took the same journey as the Hebrews from Egypt through the territories inhabited by other tribes. We must not forget that the name Germanic was adopted by these ancient Scythians while they were inhabitants of Gaul and surrounding territories. And we must not forget that the Khazarians and the Saxons were of Saka or the Buddha and were of the same hive and even more closer than the earlier tribes. So much so that Gormun, the African warrior leader, and his 100,000 men conquered Ireland. They invaded Loegria, which is central England Midlands, and drove the previous inhabitants called the Cymry Britons into the western part of Ireland. Now, the story goes, according to the annals, Corinium was an old name for Cirencester. It was also known as the City of Sparrows, as it was said that the warrior Gormun set the city ablaze with trained birds. The African warrior Gormund destroyed this city and forced Ceredic to flee to Wales. The Africans then invited the Saxons, Angles, and Jutes to settle in central England. The Jutes were said to be a Germanic tribe also, and are said to be the ancestors of the people of Kent and of the Isles of Wight. Wight. The annals also speak of the landing of the two mythical figures at Edsfleet, called Hengist and Horsa, who were said to be the leaders of the Saxons. But Hengist and Horsa are thought to be the descendants of Odin, who is Thoth among the Egyptians. Hengist and Horsa was said to have landed at Edsfleet in 449 AD. Now, this could only mean that the Saxons landed at Edsfleet under their leader, Tat, or Thoth, or Odin, the fifth avatar, the Saka, the fifth Buddha. So the Saxons were of the Saka, the fifth Saka called Tat. So they were of Tartary. And the Africans that conquered England were Khazarians, the worshippers of the ninth avatar, which was that age. But they were also anciently of Tat, who they called Thoth. So of course they were of Tartary. In fact, all the tribes and nations were of the Saka and the Sacerdotal order. They are the inventors of the mandate of heaven, where a medium is chosen between God and the people in the form of a king, priest, or the religious heads of any organization or practice. They were thought or made to be a representation of God, or God spoke through them. This sacerdotal order not only governed all religious matters worldwide, but it also constituted the laws of men. All the laws and customs of Africa, the laws and customs of Europe, the Indus, east and west of Asia, the Mesoamericans, yes, the ancient Americans were of the Saka and the sacerdotal order. From the Olmecs, Mayans, Aztecs, and many others were of the Saka, which I have previously proven. There were 3 or 4 world orders, which were all of the sacerdotal order. So not in chronological order. There was once the Pandian kingdom that once governed the world via the sacerdotal order, and it was known as an age of peace. There was the Cyclopean, which was another age of global sacerdotal obedience. There was the Amazonians, which was also sacerdotal. And then we have the Khazarians. Now, the word manuscript means menu or manuscript, the first law of man. Script came from the word Sanskrit. The word manuscript originally meant the laws of Manu or Menu or Noah's script. This script of Manu or Noah was the first sacerdotal law. Manu or Noah was the first Saka or first Buddha, the first avatar. Thus, from this script of Manu, the priests of Egypt gave their first laws. The priests of Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas all attributed the first laws to Menu or Manu or Noah, the first sacerdotal order. Now the Americans have seen various occupations of Tartary, whether they would like to believe it or not. It should be of no surprise that the Mesoamericans were ancient Tartary. The Mayans, the Aztecs, the Olmecs, and others were all of Tat. So you can say they were Meso-Tartaria or ancient Meso-Tartary, and therefore of the Saka. All the Mesoamerican tribes were of the same religion. Tartary also occupied the Americas under the name of Norse or Viking. They were the worshippers of Tat or Thoth, whom they called Odin. So of course they were of Tartary, right? Now the god of the Mexicans that led them in their migration was called Yaoteotli, said to mean god of armies. Yao said to mean army or victory, the same or very same meaning given to it by the Jews and Indians. To means dio, and tle a termination. Ttl and tt is nothing but the Tat of India and the Thoth of Egypt. Teotli is the supreme and invincible being of the Mexicans. This invincible being was Tat, the name of the Tatars. The Saka was considered the god of fire, or god of years, or the everlasting one of the Mexicans. Volney says that the Tuetlians are the Tartar nation. The Saka of the Mexicans is Xiuh Tecotli. It is clear that the inhabitants of the Americas were or are of Tartary, as stated earlier. Saka was Buddha, and Buddha was Hermes, and Hermes was Thoth, and Thoth was Mercury, who was said to be the god of merchants. He was the fifth avatar. The Mexican god of merchants was Yacatecolti. The history of the Aztecs mention a cocox that was saved on a raft in a great flood. This word cocox is Sasax or Saxon. Now Thoth in the American language is Tuata, and it means father. In Irish means dad. In Armoric, tat, and in Guatemala, tat, as well as Welsh, is tad, Cornish tad and tas. In Old Italy, tata. In Egypt, dade or dade. In Greek, teta. In the Old English, daddy. And the Mongols, dadu. The American tuata is the Indus's tat. There is no doubt that the mythologies of the Mexicans and the mythology of Asia east of the Indus and Africa are very much similar, but nowhere among the Mexicans the linga or the figures with several heads and arms can be found, and I think account for them traveling to the Americas from the remotest of times. I should add that the famous Titans should be properly called the Tatars. The Titans were of Tartary. Now, according to the author, Mr. Rankin, Mango Capac, the first Inca of Peru and emperor of the Inca Empire, was the son of Kublai Khan, also known as Shitsu, which I highly doubt, reasons given previously. However, this is how the mandate of heaven is generally applied, where one claims descent from a mythical figure such as Genghis Khan or Mango Capac. This sacerdotal law assured royals from the same bloodline for generations to come, unless toppled. So no one can be heir to the throne unless they were of pure royal blood. Here we have depictions of the Inca kings and a depiction of Timur Akbar and Jehangir. Both considered themselves descendants of Genghis Khan. These depictions are shown to see the similarities in headdress. The Inca kings, Tamerlane and Jehangir, all have feathers or the same shaped feathers in their headgear. But what is even more revealing is the Mongol seal of the Sol in Leo. The sun in Leo is the Inti of the Incas, the Narashima of the Indians, or IAST, which is depicted as a lion's head with a human body. Among the Incas, it is depicted as a face with rays of the sun as the lion's mane. As you can see, the Khan's seal of the Sol in Leo also depicts the sun with a face and rays around it. This represents the sun in Leo, or the age or time of Leo, which was before Thoth. With all that said, without getting further in depth, all of ancient America were of Tartary, and we haven't even gotten to modern Tartaria, or the last of Tartary, which was the Khazarian Empire in the west and the Shin dynasty in the east, and other fractions, or what was left of it. Now let's take a look at some of the ancient sacerdotal laws of the Incas. Manco Capac and Mama Huaca were said to be founders of the Inca Empire, who established their first laws, mannerisms, and overall way of life. This is nothing but the sacerdotal orders, as we have seen. It was said that Mango founded Cusco and built a temple to the sun. This city was the capital of the kingdom. They divided their people into two colonies and called one High and the other Lower Cusco. In each of these was at first 1,000 families, which were all registered by way of quipos or string of several colors, with knots of several kinds and colors upon them. The king would institute the quorums 1 over every 10 families, 1 over every 50, 1 over 100, and 1 over 500, and 1 over 1,000. The last was called Curaka, or governor. They were censors, patrons, and judges in small matters. Each colony had a supreme judge. Every man had one lawful wife, with the liberty of keeping other women. Theft, taking someone's life, disobedience to officers, and idolatry were punished chiefly with termination. As to deter anyone from committing new crimes, they formed troops of men armed with bows, arrows, spears, and clubs. The military establishment was constituted and arranged in the same order as the civil government. An officer appointed over every 10 men, another over every 50, 1 over 100, 1 over 500, and 1 over 1,000, and a seventh as a general over 10,000, of which it is said the Inca army was composed. With their army and many such armies, they reduced numerous territories under their empire. The conquest of the Incas extended to the rivers of Cuatatombo. Cuatatombo is the quota or fee to Buddha. Cuata means fee. Tombo means Buddha, which was said to be on the east about 30 leagues, on the west side 8 leagues, and 9 on the south. These territories were divided into 4 provinces, over each of which he appointed a Inca as a viceroy. Having many sons, the kings, that is, had each of their sons who were fit to command, governed a state. They established 3 supreme councils of justice, war, revenue, and over each, an Inca was appointed president. These institutions continued for centuries. In regards to the fees, taxes and revenues had to be paid, along with tributes to the emperor through labor. Presents of the Inca were to consist of the production of the province of the contributor. Gold, silver, and copper were to be given to the artisans in those metals. Wool and cotton to the weaver, colors to the painter. 3 months' labor were required by law, but more may be applied or deducted from the coming year. During this labor, they were supplied with food, clothing, and medicine by the state. Now this is the ancient sacerdotal orders, or the laws of men, the so-called mandate of heaven, which was and still is based on religion. Now, Vega lets us know that the variety of languages in Peru was very great. In 83 American languages examined by Merzers, Barton and Veta, 170 words have been found to be of the same root. 102 are Mongol, Manchu, Tungus, and Samoyed, and 68 are Scout, Biscayan, Coptic, and Congo. This observation proves that Tartary have supplied those two empires with their population from the remotest of times. To return to the sacerdotal order, with respect to the language of Peru, there was a general or court language that the populace or all the people subjected to the Incas was obliged to learn, but the Incas themselves spoke a language of their own, which the people were not allowed or permitted to learn or dare speak, because this language was considered divine. This language was lost soon after the conquest of the Spaniards. The Indians attributed all their laws, civil or religious, to Mango Capac, and which they thought had been communicated to him by his father the sun, but their laws were either new or reformed from ancient times. The Incas pretend that one of their kings was a great legislator. They say that he was a sovereign priest, and further that he was a renowned captain who conquered a great number of provinces and kingdoms. But with all these fine pretensions, they can't give us no particulars either of his laws or sacrifices, so they attribute everything to Mango Capac, whether of the institutions or the foundations of their empire. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Take care.